Patton stopped beside his jeep and found a captured German officer sitting behind the wheel, both hands visible, refusing every order to move. While an American guard shouted that the prisoner had crossed the yard without permission, yet Patton's anger changed the moment he saw what lay on the passenger's seat. A bloodstained U.S. dog tag, a child's photograph, and a folded note marked with the route of a convoy that had not left yet. In March 1945, Captain Karl Reiter and 60 German prisoners were held at a temporary enclosure beside an American supply depot near Koblenz, where military police sorted surrender papers while Third Army convoys moved east. Reiter had once served as a transport officer, so Lieutenant James Cole used him to translate road signs and vehicle markings during inspections. Shortly before noon, General George S. Patton's staff convoy entered the depot and stopped beside the prisoner compound. Patton stepped into the operations hut for a briefing, leaving his jeep near the fence with a driver assigned to watch it while clerks carried route folders between trucks. A disturbance began when the driver saw Reiter cross the marked line and walked directly toward Patton's jeep. Guards ordered him back, but Reiter opened the passenger door, looked at the seat, then climbed behind the wheel and placed both hands where everyone could see them. Sergeant Miller reached the jeep first and demanded that Reiter get out. The German officer refused, saying only that no one should touch the passenger seat until Patton returned, which turned a simple boundary violation into an armed standoff in the middle of the depot. Patton came outside after hearing the shouting and pushed past the guards. On the passenger seat, he found an American dog tag smeared with fresh blood, a photograph of a little girl, and a folded scrap of paper carrying the number of Route 18 beside the departure time 1430. Reiter explained that he had seen a young American courier stumble from behind the maintenance shed moments earlier. The courier had pressed the items into his hand, whispered that the convoy list had been changed, and collapsed behind a stack of fuel drums before two men in American uniforms carried him away. Miller accused Reiter of inventing the story to cover an escape attempt, but Patton checked the dog tag and recognized the name, Private Samuel Hayes, a dispatch rider assigned to headquarters. Hayes was supposed to be delivering the final route packet for a medical convoy leaving that afternoon. Patton ordered the maintenance yard sealed and sent his own military police to search it. They found Hayes's motorcycle behind the shed, its ignition wire cut, while a trail of blood led to a loading lane where a truck had recently backed against the wall. Inside the operations hut, clerks compared the folded note with the official convoy board. Route 18 had been replaced by Route 22 less than an hour earlier, yet no signed order authorized the change, and the clerk who made the correction could not be found. Patton stopped the convoy before its engines started and placed Reiter under guard beside the jeep rather than returning him to the barracks. The German officer had crossed the line and entered a general's vehicle, but the objects on the seat had exposed a missing American courier and a route change that someone inside the depot wanted completed before anyone asked why. Before the search continued, Patton ordered every copy of the route board photographed and every gate log removed from local custody, preventing another quiet correction while the depot staff remained under suspicion. Subscribe for more forgotten German POW stories like this one. Patton moved the medical convoy into a fenced vehicle park and ordered every driver questioned separately. Route 22 led through a narrow valley where a bridge had been repaired only the previous night, while Route 18 stayed on a wider road protected by regular patrols. The missing clerk, Corporal Edwin Marsh, was found in a storeroom with his uniform jacket gone and a bruise across his forehead. He remembered a civilian mechanic asking to borrow his pencil, then waking after the route board had already been changed. Military police searched the mechanic's quarters and found a fresh American uniform hidden beneath oily coveralls. Its name strip belonged to Private Hayes, the courier whose dog tag had reached Reiter, proving that someone had removed part of Hayes's identity before carrying him away. Reiter examined the photograph of the little girl and noticed a railway station stamp faintly visible on its back. Hayes had written Locker 31 beneath the child's name. so Patton sent Lieutenant Cole to the nearby station while keeping the depot completely closed. Locker 31 contained Hayes's leather dispatch case, but the official convoy packet was missing. Instead, Cole found a duplicate route map, 3 blank military passes, and a German fuel coupon issued months earlier to a transport unit Ryder recognized from the retreat. Ryder identified the old unit commander as Major Otto Krantz, a logistics officer who had vanished before surrender. Krantz had used civilian drivers and stolen paperwork to move fuel between German depots, and Ryder warned that he preferred altering legitimate convoys instead of stealing vehicles himself. A guard then reported that one German prisoner from the enclosure, Franz Keller, had disappeared during the disturbance around Patton's jeep. His bunk held an American ration card and a torn sleeve from a maintenance uniform, making it possible that someone inside the prisoner group had helped the infiltrators. Patton ordered Keller's description sent to the bridge on Route 22. Engineers reached the site first and discovered that warning signs had been moved away from a damaged support, creating a route that could force a heavy convoy onto a span not ready to carry it. The medical trucks were redirected to Route 18 minutes before departure, but Patton refused to treat the danger as solved. Whoever changed the route knew the convoy schedule, the condition of the bridge, and exactly when Hayes would arrive with the final packet. Late that afternoon, a patrol found an abandoned ambulance beside a quarry road. Inside were Hayes's jacket, Keller's prisoner cap, and strips of adhesive used to cover vehicle markings, while both men themselves were still missing. Patton placed the dog tag and child's photograph back into an evidence envelope and ordered Ryder brought into the operations hut. The escalation had linked a missing American courier, a vanished German prisoner, a forged route, and an old German transport officer, leaving Patton unsure whether Ryder had exposed the plot or stood close enough to it to know more than he admitted. The investigation changed direction the next morning when Hayes was found alive in a drainage culvert 2 miles from the quarry. He had been left without his boots or identification, but he still remembered the face of the man who stopped his motorcycle near the maintenance shed. Hayes identified Franz Keller as the first man who approached him, yet he insisted Keller had not attacked him. Keller had whispered that the route packet was compromised and tried to lead him toward the depot office before 2 men in American uniforms intercepted them. One of those men carried the insignia of an American transportation sergeant, while the other spoke German with a Bavarian accent. Hayes remembered hearing the name Krantz during the struggle, confirming Ryder's warning that the missing German logistics officer was involved. Patton sent military police to search every transportation unit using the depot. They discovered Sergeant Walter Pike had signed for spare uniforms, vehicle paint, and blank destination boards far beyond his unit's needs during the previous month. Pike disappeared before the arrest team reached his quarters, but his desk contained fuel receipts from 3 civilian garages and a handwritten schedule of medical convoys. Beside the afternoon convoy was a note reading Bridge First, File Second, suggesting that the planned route failure was only the beginning. The second target emerged when Patton's staff checked the convoy cargo. One truck carried captured German personnel records being sent to an intelligence center, including names of officers suspected of moving stolen property and falsifying civilian transfers during the retreat. Ryder helped sort the files and found Krantz's original service photograph. The folder also contained testimony from 2 German drivers, including Franz Keller, who had secretly agreed to identify the officers involved once he reached Allied investigators. Patton realized the damaged bridge would have stopped or destroyed the records convoy while creating enough confusion to remove Keller from custody. The medical supplies had been placed in the same movement, so the route change would appear urgent and ordinary. A patrol finally located Keller inside an abandoned wine cellar, where he had hidden after escaping the ambulance. He explained that Krantz's men had forced him into the vehicle, but Hayes deliberately kicked open a rear latch, allowing Keller to jump when the ambulance slowed near the quarry. Keller produced 1 page torn from the missing route packet, carrying Pike's signature beside a handwritten change to Route 22. The evidence could clear Ryder, but it created a major consequence for the German officer because Keller also revealed that Ryder had once signed transport orders under Krantz's command. Patton suspended Ryder's interpreter privileges and ordered him formally questioned about those wartime movements. Ryder admitted signing several papers, but claimed Krantz had changed their destinations afterward, leaving him unable to prove whether his own name had been used to conceal crimes. The convoy plot was now exposed, yet Ryder's position became more dangerous than before. The man who had preserved Hayes's warning might also be connected to the system under investigation, and Patton refused to let one useful action erase whatever the recovered German records could still reveal. The major reversal began when an intelligence clerk compared Ryder's signatures with the transport papers recovered from Krantz's file. The names matched, but several destination lines had been typed after Ryder's signature and carried a different ribbon pattern from the machine used at his headquarters. Patton ordered the old German typewriters collected from the captured transport office. One machine matched the altered destination lines exactly, and its maintenance tag showed that it had been assigned directly to Krantz rather than Ryder. Keller then produced a second detail investigators had overlooked. During the retreat, Ryder had ordered drivers to keep private carbon copies of every load they moved because supplies were disappearing between depots. Keller had hidden several copies inside a toolbox before capture. Military police recovered the toolbox from a surrendered vehicle park and found carbon sheets listing the original destinations. They showed that Ryder's signed orders had sent food, fuel, and medical supplies to legitimate units, while Krantz later redirected selected trucks toward private warehouses. The papers also explained why Krantz targeted Ryder after surrender. Ryder could recognize the altered numbering system and knew which carbon copies existed, making him as dangerous to the network as Keller and the captured personnel files. Patton restored Ryder to the investigation but kept him under guard. He asked why Ryder had not revealed the carbon copies when he first sat in the Jeep, and Ryder answered that he did not know whether Keller had survived or whether the copies still existed. A message intercepted at the depot radio then ordered Pike to collect the German captain before midnight and move him through a vehicle repair convoy. Patton allowed the message to appear unanswered, then replaced the repair crew with military police and parked an empty truck at the expected loading point. Pike arrived after dark wearing a mechanic's jacket and carrying papers that identified Ryder as a civilian interpreter being transferred to another headquarters. The photograph was genuine, but the name and status had been changed, proving the same identity system was now being prepared for him. Police arrested Pike before he reached the truck. In his satchel, they found Krantz's instructions, forged Allied passes, and a small photograph taken through the depot fence showing Ryder beside Patton's Jeep earlier that day. Pike admitted Krantz wanted Ryder removed alive so he could identify which German records were genuine before the files were destroyed. He also revealed that Krantz planned to reach the records convoy at a rail siding the next morning using a captured American staff car. Patton ordered no public alarm. Instead, he restored the original departure time, placed duplicate document boxes in the visible truck, and moved the real personnel files under separate guard through another route. At the rail siding, Krantz arrived in an American coat with two collaborators and opened the decoy truck using forged paperwork. Military police closed the gates. Keller identified him from behind a station window, and Ryder confirmed the scar and damaged ear shown in the old service file. The reversal was complete when Krantz's own satchel produced the altered orders, payment records, and the missing original convoy packet. Ryder had not been protecting his former commander by withholding information. Krantz had been trying to erase the men and documents capable of proving how his transport network worked. Krantz and Pike were moved to separate holding rooms while Patton ordered the captured papers copied before any hearing began. The original route packet was placed beside Hayes's dog tag and photograph, fixing the sequence of events from the courier's disappearance to the altered bridge route. Hayes returned from the field hospital under medical supervision and identified Pike as the American sergeant who had approached him near the maintenance shed. He also recognized Krantz's voice from the ambulance, giving investigators a second witness independent of Ryder and Keller. Keller testified next about the false transport network and produced the surviving carbon copies from Ryder's old unit. American clerks matched dates, vehicle numbers, and warehouse codes to the records found in Krantz's satchel, closing the gaps between the German wartime scheme and the new Allied documents. Ryder was questioned about every order carrying his signature. He identified which ones he had signed, which destinations had been changed later, and which loads he could not explain, refusing to claim innocence where the surviving papers remained incomplete. Patton ordered those unresolved orders separated into another file rather than mixed with the convoy conspiracy. Ryder would still answer for his own wartime conduct, but Krantz's alterations could no longer be used as automatic proof against him. During the hearing, military police discovered one final forged pass in Pike's quarters authorizing a staff car to enter the records depot after midnight. The pass carried the name of an American captain who had been killed weeks earlier, showing that another collection attempt had been prepared in case Krantz failed at the rail sighting. Patton replaced the depot guard and allowed the false authorization to remain active. Shortly after midnight, a civilian contractor arrived with the pass and asked for the German personnel crates, believing Pike had already cleared the movement. The contractor was detained without resistance, and his truck contained blank identification cards, American uniform pieces, and a ledger of payments from officers seeking new names. The arrest removed the final outside link still capable of rebuilding the route. Patton then issued an order requiring every sensitive prisoner transfer to use photographed identities, fingerprint checks, and 2 independent signatures. Transport changes could no longer be made by a single clerk or handwritten correction on a route board. Hayes asked for his dog tag back before returning to duty. Patton handed it over, but Hayes left the child's photograph in the evidence file because the writing on its back had led investigators to Locker 31 and the missing dispatch case. Ryder was returned to normal prisoner custody after the hearing. Before leaving the operations hut, he placed the brass locker key on Patton's desk and said he had only sat in the Jeep because the courier had told him to keep the objects where no local guard could quietly remove them. Patton looked toward the vehicle outside, then signed the corrected investigation record. The German officer had violated the camp boundary and entered a general's Jeep. Yet the official finding now stated why he had done it and what the act had preserved. The irreversible result came when copies of Krantz's network records reached every processing center in the region before dawn. False names were canceled, compromised passes were voided, and the route system that had nearly erased Hayes, Keller, and the personnel files could no longer operate under the same identities. Weeks later, Ryder was transferred under his real name, while Hayes returned to headquarters carrying a replacement dog tag. Before the truck left, Patton placed the child's photograph inside the sealed evidence folder and returned the brass key to the depot archive. Ryder passed the same Jeep without stopping this time, because nothing remained on its seat that needed protecting. The final report recorded no heroic speech, only the fact that one captured officer had chosen the most visible place in the yard to make sure a warning could not disappear. Most people know how World War II ended. Very few know what happened inside these prison camps. Subscribe for more Untold WWII stories.